The concept of dictatorship, along with the use of force and the systematic persecution of political opponents in order to maintain power, may be traced back to ancient Roman culture. However, it was the dictators of modern history who were responsible for making it almost synonymous with the most heinous abuses of human rights and the most horrific acts. It is unfortunate that not too long ago, some of the most heinous dictators in the history of modern times were in power. Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new video on the channel. Today we are going to talk about the top 10 worst dictatorships the world has seen. Before we get started with the video, don't forget to smash the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. Number 10. Adolf Hitler. These heinous individuals who ascended to power in the 1930s were the ones who were responsible for the most violent acts in the history of humanity. While his foreign policy was responsible for the outbreak of World War II, which resulted in the deaths of between 50 and 70 million people, he was also responsible for the methodical murder of approximately 11 million individuals on the basis of their race. On April 30, 1945, Hitler took his own life in order to safeguard himself from being caught by the Soviet Red Army, which was making its way toward Berlin. Number 9. Joseph Stalin. Immediately following Lenin's passing in 1924, the Soviet leader, who was born in Georgia, rose to power. A man who was paranoid and mercilessly suppressed his political foes, as well as suspected opponents, was the future ally of the United States and Britain against Nazi Germany. He was also a man who was suspected of being an opponent. The number of people that were killed or injured under the Stalinist dictatorship fluctuates. Despite this, it is estimated that between 14 and 20 million people perished in the penal labor camps known as the gulags or were put to death during the Great Purge in the 1930s. Additionally, millions of others were deported and exiled. Number 8. Pol Pot. The individual who served as the commander of the Khmer Rouge and as the dictator of Cambodia from 1975 until 1979 was personally responsible for one of the most terrible genocides in the history of modern times. It is estimated that approximately 1 million people perished in Cambodia as a result of malnutrition, imprisonment, forced labor, and murder during the 4 years that he was in charge. In 1979, the Vietnamese were successful in removing him from power, but he and his Red Khmer followers continued to operate in the countryside from Thailand. Number 7. Idi Amin. As a result of his rule of terror, which was characterized by torture, extrajudicial killings, corruption, and ethnic persecution, the third president of Uganda was responsible for around 250,000 deaths. He was in charge from 1972 to 1979, when he abruptly left the nation as a result of the setback he suffered against Tanzania, which he had attacked the previous year. He became a refugee in Libya, and later he moved to Saudi Arabia, where he passed away in the year 2003. Number 6. Augusto Pinochet. A coup d'etat in 1973 put a military dictator in charge of Chile. He remained in power for over 20 years, during which time he engaged in the harsh suppression of his opponents. Only during the first 3 years of the operation were more than 100,000 people taken into custody. During the year 1990, Pinochet resigned from his position as president of Chile, following a plebiscite in which the Chilean people voted against the continuation of his presidency. At the beginning of the 21st century, he was put on trial for alleged violations of human rights. However, the court decided that he was not mentally capable of standing trial. Number 5. François Duvalier. The dictator of Haiti, popularly known as Papa Doc, ruled the poorest country in the Americas from 1957 until his death in 1971. He was known by this nickname. Around 30,000 Haitians are said to have been murdered during his reign of terror, while thousands of people, the majority of whom were members of the intelligence community, fled the nation. A sizable number of people hold him responsible for the situation in Haiti right now. He was replaced by his son, Jean-Claude Duvalier, who perpetrated the reign of terror until 1986, when he went into self-imposed exile. He was the most powerful dictator in Haitian history. Number 4. Francisco Franco. After emerging victorious from the Spanish Civil War in 1939, the dictator of Spain remained in power until his death in 1975. He had been in power since 1939. His regime was characterized by violent repression and the methodical persecution of dissenters. These individuals were either condemned to prison, which frequently included forced labor, or executed. Concentration camps were also included in the sentencing. In the 1960s and 1970s, the Francoist regime became increasingly liberal, but it wasn't until after Franco's death that Spain became a democratic nation. Number 3. Saddam Hussein. It is claimed that the Iraqi dictator who came to power in 1979 is responsible for approximately 500,000 to 1 million killings, with the Kurds being specifically accountable for approximately 70,000 to 300,000 of those deaths. Once the United States and the United Kingdom launched a coalition invasion in 2003, Hussein was removed from power. The death penalty was handed down to him in 2006 after he was found guilty of 148 Shiite deaths that occurred in the early 1980s. The 30th of December, 2006 was the day he was executed by hanging. Number 2. Charles Taylor. During the Civil War in neighboring Sierra Leone, as well as at home during the Second Liberian Civil War that lasted from 1999 to 2003, the former president of Liberia, who was elected in 1997, allegedly by terrorizing the population, has been connected with gross violations of human rights, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. These violations occurred during the Civil War in Sierra Leone. In the aftermath of his trial before the International Criminal Court, ICC, in The Hague for his participation in the Civil War in Sierra Leone, he was handed a sentence of 50 years in prison for his involvement in the battle. Number 1. Mengistu Haile Mariam. The communist military junta known as the Derg came to power in 1974, and it was under this regime that the Ethiopian dictator who was instrumental in the destruction of the monarchy succeeded to power. It was in the late 1970s when he initiated a violent campaign that came to be known as the Ethiopian Red Terror. During this time, about 500,000 people lost their lives. When Mengistu was born in 1991, he fled to Zimbabwe. In 2006, he was convicted of genocide due to his absence from the court. At this time, he resides in Zimbabwe. That's the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, let me know by giving it a thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.